Hello, art fans. Welcome back to class. So, for today's lesson, I was trying to come up with an idea on how to make an interesting design using symmetry. And I came across this book that I had in my art collection, and I was flipping through and I thought, oh, it'd be a great idea to do something based on oriental carpets. And as I was flipping through, I noticed that often, not always, but often, the symmetry is not just left to right like we normally think of it, but if you look at the design of this carpet, you can see that it's divided into quadrants. So divided in half horizontally and vertically. You'll also notice in this rug that there is sort of a frame around the rest of the design, and I really like that. It even has a slightly smaller frame, evenly spaced the whole way around the rectangle. It's mostly just shapes, maybe a few flowers, a few design motifs that are repeated throughout the design. And I was thinking, how on earth would we ever draw that? Especially because it's symmetrical four ways. Normally, we just think of symmetry as side by side in the case of a butterfly or a heart, right? If you think about it, they're divided in half. And the left half and the right half are a mirror image to each other. Same with a butterfly. Left side's the same as the right side. So how on earth would I get it four ways? And then I realized we could use something called tracing paper. And we're going to use this little art trick where we create our designs and flip it to repeat it. But the first step that I want you to do right away to prepare your paper for this design is to divide it. The paper itself is 12 by 18 inches across. So half of 18 is 9. So you're going to lay your ruler down, lining it up from one edge of the paper to the other. Make a mark at the top of your paper at 9 inches. Slide it down. You're going to do the same thing towards the bottom. Make a mark at 9 at the bottom, and then connect them with your pencil. That'll divide it in half left to right. You're then going to divide it in half horizontally. So same thing. This time I'm going to line the top edge of the ruler up with the top edge of the paper, come down, make a mark at 6, because 6 is half of 12. So I made a 6 on the left side. I'm going to scoot my ruler across, line it up with that top edge of the paper, come down, find the 6-inch mark. That's the longest line right above the 6th digit. And I'll make a little mark, and then we're going to connect those lines. So we're dividing our big paper into quadrants. Quad means 4. Okay, once you do that, you're then going to get a piece of tracing paper that looks something like this. And the very first thing I suggest you do is to create your frame. Now, because we're only doing 1/4 of the design, you're only going to make sort of an L shape on your paper. And you're welcome to measure if you want to, if you know how to do that. But here's a quick little artist cheat that I like to use to save me time. I lined the edge of the ruler up with the edge of the paper. So I'm using the thickness of my ruler to create that border. And I'm going to do the same thing down one side along the edge. So I'm basically drawing kind of like a big L shape. And I'm just using the thickness of my ruler to save me time. Now, once you create that, if you want to measure and create a smaller frame inside, you could, not required. I at least want you to have one outside frame. Okay, you're going to measure. Oops, I did a 1/4 inch. Okay, so we're going to measure this. Let's see what happens. Okay, now, only if you want to. We're just going to divide up our tracing paper in interesting shapes. So maybe you want something like this. Maybe you want to draw a half of a heart. Maybe you want a star. I'm going to do a half of a star. Let's see what this will look like. You could put circles inside of circles, and I'll have compasses to help you do this more accurately. I'm just trying to give you a couple little ideas here. I'm going to try a little weird bent teardrop shape, kind of like a paisley. Maybe put circles inside of circles. You could do a zigzag pattern around the border. Whatever you do though, you want to draw nice and heavy with your pencil because we're going to actually transfer this. So make sure it's very dark lines. Okay, so once you're happy with the design, filling it with all kinds of interesting shapes and squiggles, whatever that means to you. I'm trying to make a peacock feather. Could be something realistic, could be something else. Here's another design that I had done using the letter W, or maybe it's the letter M, I don't know. Could be the same thing upside down. Here's a squiggle. I like the idea of fish and an eyeball. This shape you'll notice at the corner is 1/4 of a circle. I turned it into sort of a sun, so it's a circle inside of a circle, but just 1/4 of it. Because as it flips, the image is going to be complete. Here's another one I did last night where I created a fish and I filled it with a cat face and I made half of a sun. I included bubbles, so I had some interesting pattern going on there. There's a little paintbrush and a blob splatter of paint. Interesting weird little shape here. I used the letter F and repeated it. Okay, so once you create your tracing paper, and again, you want to make sure that your pencil is really heavy. Now, I've been working on this to save time so you didn't have to watch the entire demonstration. But you can see that my image transferred. So you're going to line up your tracing paper with your inside of your quadrant. You want to make sure that you tape it down so that your paper doesn't wiggle, and you're going to use your pencil and heavily draw right over top of exactly the lines that are underneath. So the original drawing faces the paper. Then you're drawing on top, which is actually loading this side with pencil as well. You're then going to flip it and trace over top of it. And then flip it again and trace over top of everything. Before you lift it, you want to kind of peek under, make sure you get all of the image transfer the whole way around. And as you can see, the pencil lines might be very light, but that's okay because you're then going to take a Sharpie and outline everything. Once that's done, and this might take you 2 or 3 days. First day, I want you to create your quadrant and start working on the design of your tracing paper. It'll probably take you 2 days maybe to transfer the image and maybe a day to outline. After you get it outlined with Sharpie, you're then going to use colored pencils to fill them in. It's going to look fantastic on the colored paper. So here's some student work from several years ago to give you some ideas. You can see it's just a simple motif, just 4 crosses and a circle. And again, the image is repeated because of that tracing paper. Here's another one. This one really liked bubbles and had some highlights and shadows. So if you're a person that likes to try to create form, maybe you want to create a pattern of form. Here's another one. It doesn't have to be super complicated, just an interesting zigzag and a few little squiggles here and there, and then a few interesting shapes. Once you add color, that's really going to jazz it up. Here's another one. Okay, this one, woo, a little more complicated. Look at that border. Just simple parallel lines going in different directions and layers. Layering gives it a sense of depth. Very cool. I love how this polka dot's kind of covering up the lines. Here's another one, a little more complicated, lots of squiggly lines. Anything you come up with is going to work. Okay, there you go. Simple circles. And I'll have compasses for that as well as rulers. There's a few more just to get your creative juices flowing. Here we go. Kind of looks like a flower. Also, if you look at it, kind of reminds me of a fried egg. That's okay, anything will work. Here's another one, just a simple crazy zigzag shape. When it repeated, it created this interesting form. Simple color motif, it doesn't have to be complicated. This student created a second smaller frame and wrote their name over and over and over again. So there's Smitty. Smitty really liked to write their name. Nice job on the lettering. And then last but not least, this is the last example. Again, simple shapes are going to work. You don't have to make it crazy complicated. If you want to draw something because you're good at drawing fish or eyes or cats or monkeys or frogs, go for it. But if you just want to do simple basic shapes that you know, that's fine as well. It's all going to work. So anyway, start with your grid. You want to divide your paper in half vertically and horizontally. Create your design on your tracing paper and make sure you draw heavy with a pencil as you originally draw it. Make sure it's nice and heavy. And then you're going to line that up on your grid and transfer it. But you want to make sure you use pencil to do that. That puts pencil on the top layer, so when you flip it over, it will also transfer. And just keep flipping 4 times. Okay, have fun.